In the heart of South America, you'll find Paraguay. It may be an unknown land to most people, but it holds infinite futures and natural wonders. In this faraway country, there's a special place, where every summer, you wake up to the singing of the birds, and the cigarras chant let you know when the sun will fade in the horizon. It is in this precise moment that you should take a deep breath and enjoy one of the most amazing sunsets your eyes will ever gaze. This place is the Ypacarai Lake. But nowadays, the water is no longer blue. You can't swim, you can't even stand near the lake because of its smell. The Ypacarai Lake is dying. Hi everyone. If you're watching this, it means that you're really concerned about this situation. Like me, if you're watching this, I should already thank you, because it means that you care about our lake, about our people, about our country. Today with me, I got Dr. Kessler. Dr. Kessler, thank you for joining us tonight. And before we even start, I would like if you could tell us a little bit more about your work, what you've been doing these past years.
Absolutely, Milo, and thank you for having me. And I get to see you twice a week in our class here at Campbellsville University.
Yeah.
I'm a professor of biology here at the university. I work with the biology program and the environmental science program. So my research background is in aquatic ecology, primarily working with fishes and with conservation. I also have experience working with one of the world's largest conservation programs, the Nature Conservancy, in our work to conserve our local river, the Green River, which is one of the most biodiverse temperate river systems in the world. So those are some areas of work that I have expertise in and that I have worked on in the future and that I continue to enjoy working with our students on here at Campbellsville University.
Oh, that's great. So you're very familiar with everything that is about water, that relates to water.
I like to be anyway, yes.
And as you already know, my country, Paraguay, is suffering a major ecological disaster.
Mm-hmm.
One of its symbols, the Lake Ypacarai, is dying.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that many people would wish to know, I think, is why has the lake turned green? Okay. Why does it have this nasty color?
Yeah, Milo, when you showed me the pictures initially, I think it grew out of a discussion we were having in class over some of these situations, and it brought to mind your home country. And immediately when I looked at the pictures and read some of the initial reports, it became obvious to me that some of the ecological and environmental problems you're seeing in your home country and in the lake are related to some problems that we have in our own country here in the United States. We call this process eutrophication. And basically what that means is an aquatic system that has excess levels or excessive levels of nutrients in the lake that has led to an explosion in the growth of certain types of algae. Mm-hmm. And in your case, and I wish I had a demonstration for you. If I could have, I would have brought a can of pea soup to our discussion today and put that in a glass for folks, because that's exactly what the water looked like. And in other lakes that experience this process, that's also what it looks like. Thick, soupy, green water. And it is that way because of an overabundance, an explosion, if you will, in the growth of the population of a certain type of algae called cyanobacteria. These are what we generally refer to as the blue-green algae. So that's where the color is coming from, but also it's where some of the other problems related to the lake that you've discussed with me are coming from. For instance, we talked about seeing fish, fishes, various species of fish that are washed up on the shorelines of the lake dead.
Yeah.
This is certainly an outcome or a consequence of the algal blooms that are occurring in that lake. And this is primarily for two reasons. Reason number one is the algae become so abundant that they change the viscosity of the water. The water becomes too thick for the fishes to pass over their gills and have oxygen exchange take place. So that is a stress on the fish. Number two, when the algae begin to grow rapidly, they also will begin to die off. And as they die off, the animals that are feeding on them are bacteria. And bacteria are not plants. Bacteria consume oxygen and give off carbon dioxide. So they are robbing the water of its oxygen content. And the bacteria are also now growing in a fashion that is out of balance with the ecosystem as they consume the dead and dying blue-green algae. A third reason that the fish have begun dying, and this also will play into the reason that people do not wish to visit the lake anymore because of not just green water, but what's in the water. Many of these algae, people don't realize this, but many of these algae actually have the capability of producing toxins. So how does that make you feel?
Oh, afraid for myself, for my health.
Yeah, so we actually do have it's not just an ecological issue, we do have a human health issue at the lake. And at any lake that has these symptoms that you have described, that we have been discussing. Many algae produce toxins that can be absorbed in your skin and can create what we call dermal toxicity, which means maybe you would develop a rash, maybe you would develop some discomfort on your skin. In many cases, these algae will also produce toxins that become aerosolized. In other words, they get into the air where the toxins can be breathed in. So if you're visiting the Lake Ypacarai and the wave action or the winds are blowing waves onto the shoreline and you have a mist as the waves crash on the shoreline, some of these toxins can be transferred into the air and then breathed in. Many people in the audience might be familiar with another type of algae that causes similar problems, that we refer to this phenomenon as the red tide. It's a different algae than the blue-green algae, but it does produce a toxin that oftentimes, for instance, I have visited areas that were experiencing a growth of this algae along the coastline of the United States. And walking along the beach became very difficult because the ocean spray also contained the toxin, and when you would breathe that in, it would irritate your throat and lungs.
Talking about threats to the health, people who are exposed to these kind of algae in the Ypacarai Lake, not necessarily going into the lake, but people who live in the nearby areas, what kind of difficulties can they experience?
Well, certainly, as we've just described, the effect of the toxin from some of these algae, if they get into the air, can cause some upper respiratory distress, maybe burning of the eyes, and of course, if you have contact with the water, certainly with a situation such as the one we've looked at, some dermal. If you have dermal abrasions or cuts on the skin, that would be a concern to me. Not only because of the algae, but also because we just mentioned the bacteria in the water could also cause infections, and the bacteria are growing at a rapid rate because they're feeding on the dead algae.
Besides the bacteria and the fact that they are taking the oxygen, and there's obviously a lot of fish, wildlife dying. And what's the meaning of this? What can we learn of this?
Yeah. Well, before we can take the step of actually trying to come up with a solution or a strategy for this, we first have to look at the causation. So what factors have led to this process of eutrophication that I mentioned earlier? And typically what we think of in aquatic biology, the typical scenario is that we see an unnatural increase in the things that the blue-green algae likes to feed on and likes to use for production and growth. And for that, that's usually what we generically refer to as nutrients. Yeah. So it could be things like nitrates, nitrogen, phosphates or phosphorus are two primary players that we look at in contributing to the explosive growth of certain types of algae. But it also could be related to the presence of certain types of metals that could come from perhaps industry, commercialization. So the two main sources here of concern are more than likely going to be industrialization in the region, which could lead to pollution of the lake, but also the introduction of any type of human or animal waste, either from the landscape, and usually we refer to that, we have a special name for that. We call that non-point source pollution. That is any pollution on the landscape that then would wash into the lake or into a river that feeds into the lake. The other type would be called point source pollution, and this is any type of pollution that could be dumped directly into the lake, such as human or animal waste that someone has brought to the lake and piped into the lake or dumped into the lake. However it gets there, once it's there, the algae loves it.
There are about 150 industries actually working in the nearbys of the lake, and that people have already seen that they dump their waste to either the wetlands or rivers that end up in the lake.
Sure.
So that's like that may be one of the principal causes of this situation.
Now,
right?
you also mentioned some or many homes or houses that have obviously been built around the lake because people wanted to be at this beautiful lake and wanted to have that place as maybe their home or vacation home. Yeah. And it's ironic, but it's very possible that if waste from those homes is finding its way into the lake, or if fertilizers that are applied, fertilizers aren't just used on farms. We use many fertilizers and much fertilizer on our lawns. Yeah. And certainly in Paraguay may be the same way. Yeah. That would also tend to run off into the lake. So it's kind of ironic that people had chosen to move there, but could possibly also be part of the cause of the problem that we're seeing that now is causing them to possibly rethink their decision of moving to the lake.
Yeah, or even just having it as a vacation spot and not being able to really enjoy it, because right now the smell is terrible. You cannot even swim on the lake. Yeah. It is really very problematic situation. So is it to blame the government, the people? It is almost everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, when you think about where you go from here, and I certainly can empathize with your country and with how much I see that you love the lake and your childhood memories we've talked about going to the lake as a young person and enjoying that, and now not being able to go back there and enjoy those same sights and sounds and experiences. That would concern anyone who regards a place as being special to them. But it also raises a red flag to us to say that, look, our environment has its limits. And if we want to enjoy the products that an environment like Lake Ypacarai has to provide for us, then we all also must recognize that we have a responsibility. In this case, from the individual who lives along the lake to the government or the government agency or government representing the people, to the industry and the companies that have found success near the lake, and who probably many of the families that work for those companies have similar memories to you of visiting the lake and enjoying what it had to offer. So it's very rare that we can point to any one cause and say if we just fix this, the problem will go away. No, most of the time it means we have to work together, cooperatively, from the individual to the government and including industry in any kind of solution, particularly given the magnitude of the problem that we see at the lake today.
Yeah, talking about that, as a professional, have you seen a degradation like this one, like the one that I've been showing you?
Yeah, it looks very serious, Milo, and probably in my experience, I can tell you what I can equate it to. The only thing that I have seen locally or in my experience here in the southeastern United States, visually, from what I've seen from the pictures online and some of the video, and I know this is going to sound maybe disturbing to some people, but it's true. The only thing I've seen that it would equate to that would be an animal waste lagoon. And to describe to people what an animal waste lagoon is, it really is a holding pond, and it's really required by law here in our country that you collect animal waste, for instance, from a dairy where we milk cows, or from other concentrated animal feeding operations. We call those CAFOs. This is a best management practice, actually, a preferred practice where we gather the waste. We either use it for fertilizer on the landscape in a prescribed amount, okay, or we put it into a pond and collect it there, and then we can use that as a liquid fertilizer. But while it's in the pond, the algae grows, and it turns a soupy green color, and you can smell the algae in the water. Mm-hmm. Not a good place for fish, okay? It's not a place that a farmer would try to raise fish at the same time. So it's polluted heavily, and the algae respond to that pollution as they have in the lake there in Paraguay.
And what can be done to reverse this situation, and what are the possible solutions?
Okay. Well, this is where we get very difficult, and where it gets a little difficult for me, because I am here in Kentucky. We're not there where we can see all of the different moving parts. But certainly you're looking at having to cut off the head of the beast, if you will, and that is remove the nutrients, the excess nutrients that are going into that lake. We have to find out the source of those nutrients, that waste. And then there has to be, once we've identified where that's coming from, we have to have creative solutions. If the waste is being put into the lake and we stop that, then where do we put it? So again, there has to be collaboration. There has to be good planning. And we have to have people working together to come up with a solution that mutually benefits everyone. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to deal with the waste, have the lake cleaned up, still have your industry, and the people who live along the lake feel like they have the beautiful surroundings that they had once before? It'll be possible, but it's going to take identifying the problem and then having the will to do something about it at all those levels we mentioned earlier, from the private citizen to government leadership to leaders in industry and corporations.
Oh, I feel so bad from where I am right now, and being so far away from home and seeing all of this situation that the lake is going through right now, not being able to do anything about it. And sometimes, like, the thing that really annoys me is that most people, now that summer is over, it seems that they don't care anymore, you know?
Yeah.
They leave everything at will.
Well, that's one thing, Milo, that you have already done. And by us sitting down and having this conversation and being able to share the view of someone from outside your country, you have continued the effort to increase awareness about this problem. And if there is no awareness, then there can be no will to do anything about the problem. And as long as people are aware and concerned, then we don't have this thing called apathy, or the idea of not caring creeping into the situation. So think, as long as there are more people like you, Milo, in your home that see this as being a problem and continue to work together to try to find a solution for everyone, because it's in everyone's best interest there, just like here in Kentucky. It's in everyone's best interest here in Kentucky that we have a living and thriving green river, okay? Because people are attracted to this area because of the Green River and because of the Green River Reservoir, because of the recreational opportunities, because of the quality of life associated with a thriving ecosystem. Mm-hmm. In your country, the same thing can be said. It's in everyone's best interest that Lake Ypacarai thrives again and someday comes back and supports all of these other uses, such as recreation and environmental tourism to your area. It's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. And one last thing, if you could, like, as a professional, give a message to the people of Paraguay that are probably going to be seeing this video, what could you tell them? What could you say to them?
Well, I guess my message is that I hope that more of you take a stand on this issue like Milo has chosen to take. Milo is not a science major or a biology major. He's actually taking a class that's required, an environmental class here at Campbellsville University. And it's people like Milo that are out there in his home country that have similar concerns. So I would encourage you to stay involved, to try to work and create a process by which you can be heard, and work with local academic institutions, local biologists, and local groups to try to continue to stimulate awareness about this problem in hopes that someday we will arrive at a consensus whereby we can have a collaborative dialogue that will lead to a strategy and a solution that will benefit all the people of Lake Ypacarai.
Time has come for us to wake up, to show that we care, to show that we are able to change. It is within us the decision of making a difference. We must act today, or there may be no tomorrow for the lake. If you made it to the end of this video, it means you care. And if you care, spread the word. Let our will be heard. Only together we can win this battle. Only together we can change.